I think the Mirror Force is gone. Let's fucking go, Eugene! What's up, guys? Old School TCG here with
Eugene.
And what did you do, buddy?
I made top 8 with Machina Gadget.
At where?
At RBET I.
That you did. And that's basically just the run of the century. Let's get into the deck profile.
Exactly. Let me actually turn this mat around.
Fair enough.
Alright, so I decided to play 9 gadgets. And 9 gadgets and 40. There is the trade-off, of course. You could open 3 gadgets, 4 gadgets. That happened a couple times to me during the event, but the trade-off is that you just get to keep going through gadgets constantly, and that grind game, like going that deep into the grind game, is really useful. I had like a couple times my opponent say to me, "Do you still have gadgets?" Because even if people are playing gadgets, a lot of times they're not playing 9 gadgets. So having 9 gadgets actually was pretty useful. So, but in the event that I did want to side out something for a monster, usually it was 1 yellow that was coming out.
Is it the weakest one?
That is the lowest attack one. It has 12. We've got the Machinas, 3 Gear Frame, 3 Fortress, and 1 Force. This is a pretty standard lineup for Machina Gadget. And you of course want 3 Gear Frames. It's probably the most powerful normal summon in the deck. You want 3 Fortress, and unlike in Machina Control, you actually want the Fortress to be in your hand at first. Because what that does is that it allows you to pitch 1 essentially dead gadget to summon it. And then it's okay for it to be in the grave, because later, if you draw into the Force or one of the Gear Frames, then you can make a good trade and like pitch the Force for Fortress. But otherwise, not too much to say about the Machina lineup. Also fairly standard. And for the last monster, I decided to put in Cyber Dragon.
Only one?
One Cyber Dragon. You'll see that there's 1 in the side.
But why only 1 in the main?
It felt like the right number of like main deck monsters. I can't explain it very well, but this was sort of a flex spot for me in the past. This used to be a Scrap Recycler. Then I realized it was bad.
Fair assessment.
Then it used to be a Cyber Valley, and the reasoning for that, I'll explain a little bit later, was an attempt to sort of solve what I call the gadget problem, where obviously gadgets at hand don't do anything unless you have a way to discard it for something like Fortress or Discard Trap. But gadgets on field are actually not as useful as you would think. A lot of times 1 gadget is the same as 3 gadgets. So it used to be I wanted to have Cyber Valley in order to convert essentially gadgets that weren't doing anything useful on the field into some sort of advantage. The problem is that Cyber Valley itself also doesn't do anything on its own, and you definitely don't want to leave it on the field post side, because it's just going to get Chimera Teched. So I ended up going with Cyber Dragon because it's a good way to deal with going second against aggro decks. You can, in a pinch, you can pitch it for Fortress. It's a machine, of course, and it doesn't get hit by deck dev.
Fair enough.
So that was the monster count in the main. For the spells, 3 Solidarity.
You have to.
It makes the deck. With Solidarity up, any of the gadgets can beat over basically any normal summon in the game, most normal summons in the game, and red and green can beat over most sets in the game, save for I think Hoplimus. You need green to get over Hoplimus. But aside from that, if you have 1 of these, if your opponent can't get rid of it, it's going to be a problem. And this is basically the identity of the deck. So in any matchup, no matter what, you basically need 3 of these.
You never bricked on it because you were always just with the machines. A single machine hits the graveyard, Solidarity becomes live.
Exactly. And even in matchups where you don't think you may need it, you still need it, because that allows 2 gadgets to go from like a 3-4 hit kill to a 2 hit kill.
Very nice.
So you needed to push for game. It's as far as I can tell, this is essentially mandatory in all matchups, even post side.
Question: did you ever have all three on the field at the same time?
No, not during the event. I've definitely had lots of games in the past where I've had two on the same time, which is really funny because that makes Gear Frame 34. It makes Fortress I think 41. And it even makes Yellow a what's 12 plus 16, 28.
Wow, crazy.
For the sort of spot removal cards, I've got 3 Smashing Grounds and 1 Creature Swap.
Really?
So Smashing Ground, 3 of. Generally, in any Machina Gadget deck, the reason that you want Smashing Grounds is that, as you might have noticed, the monsters do only one thing, and that's attack. If for whatever reason you have a monster that attacking just isn't going to get over, maybe say Spirit Reaper or a bigger monster like Titanial, you need the Smashing Ground to clear it. Smashing Ground also it can clear, if you're going second, it clears the way for some of your gadgets, which is really good in aggro matchups like Blackwing, Glad Beast. You want to get, this is usually the first action that you do. It clears the monster, it makes their chariots and their
Icarus
like dead. So one problem that I've been having or have had in the past is just trying to figure out how many spot removal cards that I should be running in the main. For this event, I decided to make it a total of 4 since I count Creature Swap as sort of like a pseudo spot removal. I don't know if that's the correct number going forward, but at least for this event, that's what I decided on. And if anybody else out there has thoughts on what the correct number of spot removal cards should be, let me know. I'd be very curious to hear it.
Absolutely.
Creature Swap is like a pseudo swap, a spot removal card, and what it does is, one, against aggro matchups. Let's say there's a Shura in play or something. You summon a gadget, and you then use Creature Swap. You swap the creatures. Shura is bigger than the gadget, and it's again functionally like a Smashing Ground in that sense. It also has a dual purpose in making the Raikos and Hamsters dead. I've previously run like 2, even 3 creature swaps, but I think that was a little too much, so I decided that for this event, 1 was the right amount, and it seemed to have worked out.
Alrighty.
Limiter removal.
Broken.
It can just end games. There's not much to say about it. At best, you can win the game off of a single Gear Frame and Fortress. Or a single gadget and a fortress if there's solidarity. At worst, it's like a bad shrink, which is still fine. It's almost never going to be completely dead. So yeah, it's sometimes you can just instantly win. And this is Machina gadgets are overall a slow deck, but this is basically the only card in the deck that you can instantly win the game with.
Yeah, it's also Kalut. It's anti-Kalut because if your opponent has Shura and they attack into you, they can drop Kalut. You flip that over, and they can still lose everything.
I don't think that interaction works though, because this any attack defense modifier needs to be activated in before damage calc, but Kalut I think needs to activate in the damage calculation itself. But usually they're so big that it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And if it's Fortress, it'll just kill the card with it.
Exactly. Spell trap removal. Not much to say about this one.
No Cold Wave, no Giant Churnade, just those 2?
This deck is not fast enough or doesn't have enough OTK potential, except without this card, in order to warrant those cards. I have considered the idea of Nobleman of Extermination to get rid of specifically prisons and bottomlesses, but I just went with a standard back row hate lineup. Heavy Storm usually comes out in most frog matchups and other matchups where they're not playing typical traps, like bottomless or prison, and sometimes I will swap this out instead with like a dust, where I really want um, the instant speed removal.
Right.
But MST almost always stays in no matter what.
Right, because you need to use it for like stuff like royal oppression,
Right.
and then you just floodgates.
Yeah. So not much to say about this one.
Onto the traps.
On to the traps. I have 5 traps that I consider in the broad category of summon stops.
Okay.
There's 2 Horn of Heaven,
Okay.
2 Bottomless, and Torrential.
Okay, so these 2 are pretty much normal. Almost every single deck plays them. But I want you to go into details about the last one, the Horn of Heavens.
Right. So Horn of Heaven is something I've been toying around with for a while, and it's an attempt to solve the gadget problem, like I mentioned earlier. You have dead gadgets on the field, or not necessarily dead, but gadgets, and you're not really taking full advantage of the +1. If you have 2 gadgets on the field, it might as well just be 1 in a lot of situations. So I tried to look around for lots of different cards that could help convert gadgets on the field into real advantage. I've looked into like enemy controller. That didn't really work out. And Ballista Squad is surprisingly a 2018 card. I didn't realize that.
Oh, fair enough.
But the best I could come up with was Horn of Heaven.
And how often did it work?
It fairly often actually.
That's crazy.
It can. If you've ever had a crazy summon negate with Solemn Judgment, you know how powerful a summon negate can be. It can stop any sort of summon. And all you need to do is tribute a gadget, which you're going -1 for that, but you already +1 with summoning the gadget the turn before. So you're essentially going neutral for a summon negate, which is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The question was whether or not I should have 1 or 2. In the lists that I've played before, I've only had 1, but I decided just spur of the moment the night before that I should go with 2.
And it worked.
It worked. During the event, I didn't see any duplicates of it. It just allowed me to see it more often. If I do see duplicates of it, that would suck. But this is one of those questions that I don't really have a clear answer to whether it should be 1 or 2. But during the event, 2 worked out for me.
Very nice.
Yeah, and the other traps are fairly straightforward.
Yeah, every deck basically plays them.
For the battle traps, standard lineup, 2 prison, 1 mirror force.
Very standard.
Usually the prisons came out. My strategy, and I don't know if it's correct, has been taking 1 out for Hero Frog. And if it's like super heavy combo deck, then both of these just come out. It doesn't. Their game plan isn't to attack to like further advance their game plan. Their game plan is to do 1 thing
and lock you out.
Yeah. So the prisons have no use being there. Mirror Force almost always stays in though.
Yep, fair enough.
Now I've talked a little bit about Horn of Heaven, but I really think it's these 2 cards that were the MVPs of the day.
Oh yes, sir. Oh my gosh.
By far. So both of these function primarily to protect the back row. And of course you can negate other things with Solemn, especially summons. Summon stops are powerful. The card... So Starlight Road, I've always had doubts about whether or not to include that in the deck. So essentially this is to protect the back row, but the problem is that do you summon the Stardust or not? And obviously the problem with summoning Stardust is that it conflicts with Solidarity. During the event, every single time I was able to resolve this card, I did happen to summon Stardust. And I always won the game because of it.
Damn, that never happened to me. Every single time I tried to resolve it against Black Wings, I always had the royal oppression with it.
So it's I think it just happened to work out, but summoning Stardust off of this is not always the correct answer. Sometimes you just want to use it to like specifically negate Heavy or Icarus.
Especially because of Solidarity.
Exactly. So sometimes that is going to be the right answer, just not summon the Stardust, but it just happened that all of my matches that this resolved, I summoned the Stardust, and that essentially won me the game. And of course, Solemn is the other function. It functions to protect the back row, but I actually used it more often to negate summons. and it really worked out. There was one unfortunate game against the Blackwing, for the Blackwing player, where I had 4 set cards. There were these, a bottomless, and something else. What happened was that they specialed Citra. I had to bottomless it. They normaled Sirocco. I solemned it from 8K. And now they were confident that I didn't have the Starlight. So the next turn I attacked with 2. They Mirror Forced. I Starlighted. That won me the game.
Wow. Damn.
I know Horn of Heaven is an unusual card, but these I really think were the ones that I got the most value from.
Very nice. Glad to hear that.
For the chainable traps, trap dust shoot, I don't need to say anything about that.
Correct. Just about everyone plays it.
Karma Cut, I'm confident that in every gadget deck, or at least Machina gadget, you need at least 1 discard trap. And no more, no less. So the question is what discard trap you should play. And I think in the current meta, it's going to have to be Karma Cut, because this deck has a really, really, really bad frog matchup, any frog matchup.
Okay.
So you want to use this to essentially banish the Treeborn as quick as possible. And it's overall just a really powerful card. It outs cards that gadgets just in general have problems with.
Fair enough. And then I see 1 last trap or 2 last traps?
1 last trap, and that's Oppression.
Oh my gosh, I hate this card.
I've been conflicted, and I'm still conflicted about whether this should be in the main, but
Okay.
I decided to run it in the main for this event. And you can, if you actually look at my feature match, it both helped and hurt me. A couple times I've stopped some really nasty dark arm drops, but also as long as it's on the field, it locks me out of Fortress. So I have to be confident that I have what I have, either like solidarity boost gadgets are enough to win the game. But I have lost a game. My first game lost to the plant player. I lost because this was stuck on my field. I couldn't get my fortresses out. So I think I'll keep this in the main going forward, but I'll really have to reevaluate this.
Okay. Moving on to the side or extra first?
There's honestly not much to say about the extra. All you need to know is that there's 2 Chimera techs there.
Fair enough.
So the side deck is a little bit of a mess if you've seen the list, but I'll try to organize it in a way that thematically makes sense. So for the monsters, I only have 2. It's Card Trooper and a second Cyber Dragon.
There. Okay.
The second Cyber Dragon is for going second against aggro matchups, and of course against other machine matchups, usually Machina. So that's fairly self-explanatory. And Card Trooper, and actually both of these, are against specific. Card Trooper is specifically against Hamster.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not for the mills at all. And in fact, I don't know if I would want to mill a fortress, but in any case, the function of this was against Hamster decks.
Just to get it to beat over.
Yeah, beat over it, and they special the Raikou, and I leave nothing else but the Card Trooper on the field, and they either flip the Raikou, destroy this, and get negative value, or they have to like keep the Raikou face down. So this deck has a hard time against Hamster, so I wanted essentially cards that helped against that.
Okay.
And Cyber Dragon sort of fulfills that same role too. For removal cards, spot removal, I have Knock and Fissure.
Okay.
Fissure goes in second against aggro matchups, and usually creature swap comes after that. Knock is for, again, hamsters and Raikous, since I have trouble dealing with that. This didn't work out too well for me the day. The feature match that I had, game 2 against the Vaya player, I was able to resolve it, but it's surprisingly not as effective as you would think it is. The one matchup, though, I would really want this for actually is zombies.
Oh, yes, because you'd want to get rid of their pyramid turtles or goblins.
Yeah, whether it's goblin, whether it's pyramid turtle, I just don't want that in play at all. So I think it's more useful against zombies. Against Hamster Raikou, it's like a little meh. For mass removal, I have Lightning Vortex and Needle Sealing.
Okay.
they're essentially different ways to attack, the boards where there's titanium backed by a bunch of tokens, or other boards where they're just going to swarm, like Dragon Turbo, for example.
Frogs, if they keep going.
I was unsure of like exactly how many of these I wanted, but I ended up with two and two different cards to attack the problem in different ways.
Right.
And Needle Sealing is also good for clearing out gores, because chances are you're going to have a lot of monsters on the board too.
That you usually will.
For Graveyard Hate, I have two cards for that: Soul Release and Transmigration.
Yes, Transmigration Prophecy.
Again, this deck can't play a normal side because of Solidarity, so instead of Crow, it's Transmigration.
Okay.
Again, I wanted two cards to attack the same problem different ways: Mass, Spell Speed 1 Banishing, and Quick Effect, Graveyard Disruption. The funny thing is, Game 3 against the Plant player, what happened was that it was in a more simplified game state. This was set, and they went Miracle Fertilizer, target Alone Fire. What happened was then I chained this to target both the Lone Fire and the Dandy to shuffle them back. That left Fertilizer on board. That allowed me to go for game, and they had a Gore stuck in hand.
Oh, that's brutal.
So, a little funny interaction there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But worked out for me. 3 pieces of back row hate. I went for Twister instead of a third Dust. 1, because of Decree, and 2, because I don't want a potential set Dust Tornado to be sniped by another Dust Tornado or MST. I want this to just be always live to get rid of that Whirlwind or Decree or Oppression, whatever. So 2 Dust Tornado was going to be put in for Glads, and 3 was going to be against decks essentially that ran Skill Drain or other crazy purple decks.
Okay.
1, Pulling the Rug.
Only 1.
Only 1. I wasn't sure whether to include this at all, but I also knew I did not want to. Because I feel like most decks that do have powerful normal summons, the normal summon isn't such a centralizing portion of their deck that I feel like it would warrant 2. So I ended up going with 1. I didn't really see it today. I barely even cited it in. But I think the only decks that warrant 2 would be traditional like Frog Monarchs or my deck. So,
Right.
And 3 continuous traps. Iron Wall, Second Oppression, and Rivalry.
Goated Iron Wall. Iron Wall's an amazing card.
Iron Wall is a very good card, but I always ending up in my graveyard somehow. But it's a very good card for banished decks. Second Oppression for special summon heavy decks like Lightsworn, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And Rivalry of Warlords is sort of an interesting one. It has a weird matchup spread that even I'm not sure what it's best against right now, but it sort of hurts value. It essentially forces them to pop this instead of maybe a Solidarity. And it also does heavily disrupt Hero Frog and Lightsworn and Christiasworn, those kind of decks.
Wow.
So you'll notice that, again, the side has a bunch of one-ofs, and essentially I wanted to, 1, tackle different problems in different ways, and 2, what was I going to say? I essentially didn't want to see multiples of different cards, and I just wanted a different variety. Plus, if you think about each of these cards as sort of like a Venn diagram, in terms of what different strategies they counter, it allows you to sort of mix and match what you decide to side in.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so final question for you. Mm-hmm. Is there any shout-outs that you have?
Shout-outs to everyone here at the shop, Magic and Monsters. That's where I played most of my gadget games, sort of developed my chops. Shout-outs actually to Eric Shen Sizzle. That's where I got the transmigration idea from.
Okay.
Honestly, shout-outs to all you gadget players out there. I did do well, but a lot of my run was honestly due to luck. But I still believe that my list can definitely be optimized. So if you have any opinions, feedback, criticism on my list, please do so.
Alrighty. Thank you so much.